Welcome back to March Madness Analysis. Top 10 disappointing teams of the 2019-2020 season. Let's start off at number 10 with Nebraska. I know Nebraska is not necessarily a basketball-oriented team, but this season was particularly rough for the Cornhuskers. An overall record of 7-25, finishing dead last in the Big Ten with a 2-18 conference record. They didn't win a single game on the road this year and had four awful losses, including a 19-point loss to UC Riverside at home, a 19-point loss to George Mason at home. They lost to Southern Utah at home, and they also lost to North Dakota at home this year. Tough season for the Cornhuskers. Let's go to number 9. VCU, ranked in the preseason 25th in the country, and they finished 9th in the A-10. I know you got a couple good teams in the A-10, including Dayton, Tulsa, Rhode Island, but I didn't think VCU would sink past the 5 spot. 8-10 in conference play. 18-13 overall isn't awful, but again, in the A-10, I thought the Rams could have done a little more. Let's go to number 8. Xavier, ranked in the preseason 19th in the nation with an overall record of 19-13, finished 7th in the Big East with an 8-10 conference record. Couple bad losses, including Wake Forest and DePaul at home. Let's go to number 7, Notre Dame, finishing 10th in the ACC this year with a 10-10 conference record, 20-12 overall record. Couple bad losses, including a home loss to Boston College, and they also lost to Wake Forest. But this Fighting Irish team had 3 senior starters, including John Mooney, who led the NCAA in double-doubles this year. Disappointing season for Mike Bray and the Fighting Irish. Let's go to number 6, Washington Huskies, finishing dead last in the Pac-12 after being ranked through the first 13 games of the season. They were 5-13 in conference play, 15-17 overall. They wouldn't have made the NIT tournament. Really rough end of the season for the Huskies. Now let's go to number 5, Purdue Boilermakers, 10th in the Big Ten with a 9-11 conference record. Overall, they were 16-15. But they had a really hot start against Virginia with a big win at home. I thought they could be a team that got hot, but they really struggled. They were ranked in the preseason 23rd, but they had a few bad losses against Nebraska, and they lost to Rutgers at home this year. Let's go to number 4, Memphis. I know they lost James Wiseman, but they had Precious Achiuwa, and they had a solid team. They're ranked in the preseason 14th in the country, and they were 9th at one point in the year, but they finished 5th in the AAC, 10-8 in conference play, and 21-10 overall. I thought the Tigers could have done a little more this year. Now let's go to number 3, Texas Tech, coming off the NCAA runner-up, and they finished 5th in the Big 12 with a 9-9 conference record, 18-13 overall. They had a 3-7 record on the road this year. They were ranked in the preseason 13th, but they had a bad loss against DePaul, and they finished their season on a 4-game losing streak. Now let's go to number 2. The Florida Gators had an 11-7 conference record, 19-12 overall. They had a really good team with Kerry Blackshear Jr. and Keontae Johnson. They were ranked in the preseason 6th overall, and they had a couple of bad losses to UConn and Missouri. I thought Florida would be a top 10 team after this year, but they definitely were not. And finally, at number 1, North Carolina Tar Heels, dead last in the ACC, debatably the worst team that Roy Williams has ever had. 6-14 in conference play, 14-19 overall. 7-8 record at home this year, and a 3-9 record on the road. They were ranked in the preseason 9th and bumped their way up to 5th at one point, but had a lot of awful losses, including they lost to Wofford at home, they lost to Pitt at home, they lost to Georgia Tech at home, they lost to Clemson at home, and they lost to Boston College at home. And it's not like they had a bad team. They had 2 5-stars, obviously Cole Anthony, and they had Armando Bacot, another 5-star, and they have Garrison Brooks, who could potentially be the ACC Player of the Year this year. They just couldn't get a W. Disappointing season for the Tar Heels. I'll see you next week.